Hello friends, Adam here with FED. You know, there are some opinions that I don't feel like I'm allowed to have as a Fire Emblem YouTuber. I don't feel like I'm allowed to like the story in Fire Emblem Fates, and beyond that I feel like I have to justify even liking the game by saying something like, oh, I know the story is bad, but the gameplay is still really fun. Or I can't like the animations in FE9 and I have to endlessly berate it for being a very long game in terms of animations and enemy phases. And of course, you must endlessly praise Fire Emblem 4 Genealogy of the Holy War as a masterpiece and as the best game of all time. But guess what? I really dislike playing Fire Emblem 4. It is dull and monotonous. It is full of lifeless characters, especially Generation 2 characters, don't get me started, and so much waiting. You think the waiting in FE9 is bad? FE4 disrespects the player's time to no end. It is not fun to play in the slightest for me. And I'm going to go through all those points. You know, it's dull and monotonous, lifeless characters, and so much waiting separately, so you can kind of see where I'm coming from. This isn't to say I don't appreciate FE4 for what it is and what it did for the series in advancing certain mechanics and whatever else. I just can't get myself to play it anymore. You know? Can't get myself to play it anymore. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But so as far as it's just being dull and monotonous, every map and every situation feels the same and is handled almost exactly the same. Your mounted units charge to seize points, Sigurd bops the boss, seizes, and you rinse and repeat. And I know that is a bit reductive, but man, it is such a boring process to me after the first couple chapters. I think for me, Fire Emblem 4 really starts to feel tedious in this way once we get into the Spirit Forest in Chapter 1. That's where you recruit Deirdre, and like Sigurd meets her in the forest or whatever. And it is just, that part's really tedious, and then the whole map is tedious for me up until the very end. Then you get to Chapter 2, and that map is all tedium to me, and it just hurts to play. Just, it's so samey, you know. I don't know, it's so samey. And again, I know that doesn't tell the full story, but that's how it feels while I play it. As far as the characters go and how I say they're lifeless, I only say that because Fire Emblem is generally known for having a colorful cast of characters in the games. The previous games, FE1 through 3, obviously had a pretty lame cast as well. So really, it's more a product of the time than anything. But it doesn't excuse the fact that, yes, I think the most of the cast in Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War is pretty bland. The Gen 2 cast feels particularly lifeless. A lot of the children characters don't have much, if anything, to say, and it's just, and some of the substitutes too, like just super forgettable characters. I'm not a big fan. And this is probably the most subjective point here. They're all everything's subjective when it comes to talk about this. When it comes to talking about this kind of thing, but this is probably my most subjective take, that the characters are boring. I wouldn't say there's a single character in the game that sticks out to me and then I'm like, oh, I like that person's personality, because no one really has one. So the game just really disrespects your time. It's so much waiting, right? Last point. When I was younger, I had tons of time to play video games, right? When I was in middle school, high school, elementary school, whatever. Before I became an adult, I had a lot of spare time to sit down and play Fire Emblem. You know, a lot of Fire Emblem games can be pretty time-consuming, and that wasn't a problem. And I think FE4 might be the most time-consuming for the amount of enjoyment you get out of it. And as a teenager, that was fine, because I didn't have anything else to do. You know, I went to school. I had like a part-time job sometimes I had like a football practice or something when I was doing that. But otherwise, I just had a bunch of time to play video games as long as I did well in school and stuff, right? My parents didn't care. As an adult, I don't have time to just play video games whenever I want. I have, you know, I have a family to hang out with and take care of, and especially just I don't like to spend my time away from them when, you know, when everyone's home. So when Maggie gets home from work, I try not to sit down and play too many video games unless I'm playing them with her. I mean, occasionally I'll break that rule of mine and disappear for an hour or two, but usually I just sit down when people are when I'm alone, essentially. That compounded with the fact that Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War has the most waiting in the series And maybe that's not true. Maybe FE9 might have a little more weighting in the later chapters, especially on harder difficulties, because the enemy phases are so long. But FE4 has other things that really just drive me nuts that I think are worse than the weighting in FE9. So number one, we already talked about it. Enemy phases can be very long in FE4. But the bigger problems are these. There is a bunch of space between map objectives. Like, tons of just dozens and dozens of tiles of movement to get from one castle seize point to the next castle seize point. And enemies are often spread out in these they're like in these large waves, but because they're in these waves and not spread out like more throughout the map, there's not much enemy density throughout the entire map. You have, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 turns of action, and then 2 or 3 turns with no action, and then 3, 4 turns with action, 2 or 3 turns without action. So the game becomes a walking simulator where you click on a unit, you will slowly drag the cursor over, click where you want them to go, move them over there, and you just do that with your entire army if you want to use your entire army. Now I understand there's the point you can make with this that, oh, well, you don't need to use your entire army. You could just use your mounted units, or you could just use, you could even just get away with using just Sigurd and for most of the game, for most of Gen 1 if you wanted, stuff like that. And I get that. But that's not, I don't feel like that's how the game's designed. That's not how I enjoy playing Fire Emblem. I don't like soloing things, it's boring. So, yeah, just too much moving, too much waiting. And even the little things, I feel like the game really just disrespects the player's time. And it might be a product of the game being, what is it now, 25 years old, or whenever it came out, or when did it come out, 94, 93? I don't remember. Came out a long time ago, though. So, it's a product of the era it came out in. But things like cutscenes before, the cutscene before Chapter 1 is so annoying. That part where Eldigan has to come from his castle very slowly, stop at the border guard even, he stops, then keeps moving very slowly until he gets to the player castle to talk to Sigurd. Why? You can't even skip that. You can't press start to skip it. It's just a cutscene that they make you watch, and it feels so disrespectful to me, the player. And again, I appreciate FE4 for what it did to advance the series, but man, it is torturous to play all the way through. It's not the kind of Fire Emblem game that I can play over and over again. I've tried many times. I've played through its entirety, like vanilla FE4, I think twice. And I've also played through Fire Emblem Binary twice. Fire Emblem 4 Binary, which is just a hack that adds and changes a bunch of things. And now every time I sit down to play either one of those, I get so bored. I just don't know if I can ever... it'll be a long time before I play it again, I'll be honest. Unless something happens on the channel and you guys really want it, but I don't foresee that anytime soon. Anyways, that's my thoughts. Thank you for listening to me ramble on for, I don't know, close to 10 minutes. But please, don't hate me for having a different opinion than you. But please go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments. Why do you love or dislike FE4? What do you think of the points that I brought up? Do you think they're valid? Do you think I'm an idiot? Let me know. I am very curious how you all will react to this take here. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We talk about Fire Emblem all the time. That's what this channel is all about. It's a great, grand old time. And yeah, bye friends.